It's Patrick from Halfwheel, and this is the JetLine Avalanche. Now, this was announced in the summer of 2019. We didn't really see it until the end of the year or even into early 2020, depending on your particular retailer. It was one of two notable quad flames that the company had put out last summer, along with the Bugle Master, which is known for its curved lid design, as well as a few other tweaks as far as the form and the detail. But again, this is the Avalanche. It is a quad flame lighter. To give you the quick specs, 3.94 inches high, 2.17 inches wide, and 1.06 inches thick. Weighs 9 ounces, just over half a pound, or 254 grams. And it's technically a tabletop lighter, but I will say, while it's not pocket friendly, it's not pocket impossible. And I bring that up mainly to show off two other pretty well-known JetLine lighters. One is the very affordable and pocket-friendly JetLine Super Torch, and this is a triple flame, just for sake of comparison. They're all basically the same size. But just to show you a little bit of difference in body size and thickness and width and whatnot. Again, this is really what you would consider a pocket lighter. And then when it comes to pocket impossible, there is the infamous V6, which was reviewed a while back on Halfwheel. Much bigger, much heavier lighter, and also known for having 6 flames, which I have conveniently left the fuel out of so as not to burn my camera down. But a little bit different lighter. But again, just to show you kind of where this fits in the JetLine family in terms of sizes and whatnot. So this comes in 4 colors: copper, chrome, gunmetal, and this one, which is red, with a fair amount of black accents on the body and whatnot. Each of them sell for $59.99. And really, there's a couple of big selling points with the Avalanche. First off is obviously that it's a quad flame lighter. It's really designed for bigger cigars, heavier cigars, meaning stuff that uses heavier tobacco that takes a little bit longer to burn. It's also known for a really unique ignition mechanism. So instead of pulling down or pushing, you actually push up on this. And I'll show you the flame in just a second when we turn the lights out. But again, this is a push-up ignition. And this is something we've seen more and more over the last couple of years. JetLine had a number of products that have this push-up ignition. It's not completely dominating the market. You still have pull-down, you still have push-button, you still have side squeeze. But if you haven't used a push-up ignition yet, I would highly encourage you to check one out somehow and somewhere, because it's unique. And while it's not going to be inherently familiar for you, I really do think that if you try it, you'll like it, because it sort of pushes all your energy in the same direction. And it's a tough thing to explain until you actually try it. But again, if you haven't tried one yet, I would definitely, just for the sake of the experience, try a push-up ignition. So beyond that, it has a nice big fold-out punch cutter on the bottom. One of the biggest punch cutters I've seen, both in terms of the size of the plate, and it's a fairly sizable punch, so it'll work on bigger cigars as well. Probably a little bit more geared towards bigger cigars, to be honest with you. And underneath that little flap, you will find your flame adjustment wheel right there. And this is one of my favorite designs. It's that fold-out little tab right there. And then again, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Lots of room to adjust on this one, which I love. I've had a few lighters recently that did not have a lot of adjustment room. This one has tons of it. So if you really like to dial in your flame height, this is a great lighter for that. Fuel valve is right there in the middle, very standard. Nothing terribly unique about that. The fifth and final selling point is one that unfortunately I can't show you in this video because it no longer works, and that is a color-changing flame. And what I mean by that is, if I flip this open, I'm going to try and get a nice close focus. You can see 3 metal plates that are right there on top of the 4 burners. And when this is a new unit, it basically puts off a unique color. It's kind of a deep red, almost ruby-ish, kind of depending on the lighting you're in and whatnot. And I've heard theories that it's supposed to make your flame more visible in daylight. I tend to think it's more just a neat little novelty than anything else. But the trade-off to that is it wears off. And so if you're buying this for the color-changing aspect, you're probably going to be disappointed in a couple of weeks or months, depending on how much you use your Avalanche. The other kicker with this is that not only does it wear off, but if you really like to light your cigars for a long time, like you're one of those slow toasters or you're kind of an over toaster, those little pieces can actually melt. And this is coming from a representative from JetLine who warned me about this, saying don't, overuse your lighter in single spurts. If you do it, again, it's not like a cumulative effect, but if you let your lighter burn for a long time in individual spurts, those things can have a tendency to melt. Now, these have not, from what I can tell, but when they start melting, they can get in the jets and clog them up, which is certainly not good. So now that I've given you a little bit of insight as to kind of what the selling points are, let's turn the lights off and fire this up. So again, nice big quad flame, and you can see those turning orange, but again, whatever the coating is that was on that has worn off. And so now you're seeing 4 very traditional blue flame jet torches. In its younger days, when this thing was brand new, again, you would see sort of a reddish color in the middle. There's every once in a while I'll see a little bit of it, but I've been using this pretty much every day for the last couple of weeks, and it has stopped. So now I'm left with a still very functional lighter. Still works just fine, just doesn't change colors, and I do have to be mindful not to overheat those, because as you can see, they are turning orange, and if you keep letting that happen, they are prone to melting. Ignition is generally very good. Again, I like to just give it a nice slow push-up to get that butane flowing. Really doesn't have any sort of problems in that regard. So again, really nice lighter in terms of that if you're looking for a big flame. So we turn the lights back up, and again, with a nice big flame, it does put off a lot of heat. So that's one of the first things you have to be conscientious of when you're using this lighter. The lighter itself doesn't tend to get too hot, but it does tend to emit a good amount of heat on this back panel. So you sort of learn to put your hand down here and push up, as opposed to putting your finger right under the lid, because this plate right here it's not enough to necessarily burn you. It's definitely hot enough to be uncomfortable. I'll put it that way. Again, lots of flame, and the other trade-off, or the other reality with this, is that it's putting out a lot of flame going wherever the flame is shooting. So if you're one of these people that likes to light your cigar with it in your mouth, which we all, I think, do it time to time, you gotta know how high your flame is, because otherwise you might be singeing some facial hair or other things. And the same thing, again, having your hands around it, having anything really flammable around it, you have to know what your height is, so you don't accidentally set something on fire. Again, the color change piece wears off. I wish I would have filmed this a lot earlier, and had I known that was the case, I would have done that. But again, it's something you'll see in pictures, and the trade-off for that, that's not a trade-off, but a downside of that is not only does it go away and you risk the little pieces melting, it's not part of the warranty. So you have to be mindful of that as well. Now, for the most part, this is a really solid lighter. It's well built, nice heavy metal body. Again, 9 ounces, just over half a pound. You definitely feel it in the hand. And again, I think as long as you have it filled, and again, you have a nice big fuel window back there, and importantly, that you bleed the air out of the lighter in between fills, and give it just a nice, gentle, you don't have to, you can rush it, but I tend to find a little slower slide of the ignition works a little bit better. You will get a really nice solid lighter with a big flame, probably too big for anything under a 50 ring gauge in my experience, but I also use this on a lot of Lanceros and even a 36 ring gauge or 32 ring gauge cigar, if I'm not mistaken. And again, as long as you're careful, it doesn't scorch the sides. But again, this really is geared towards bigger cigars. So while this might not necessarily be my first choice, it is a solid option, and for me, it's a nice lighter to have in the arsenal, so to speak. When I do want to light something bigger, or just want to have something out on the table for friends and people to use and feel pretty comfortable with. So again, that's the JetLine Avalanche. You can read my full thoughts in the article on halfwheel.com. Thanks so much for checking this out. And for all the latest in cigar news and reviews, keep it on halfwheel.com.